Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
The externally visible cartilaginous structure of the external ear. Fruiting spike of a cereal plant, especially corn. Attention to what is said. He tried to get her ear. Good hearing. He had a keen ear. The sense organ for hearing and equilibrium. The externally visible cartilaginous structure of the external ear. A small conical pouch projecting from the upper anterior part of each atrium of the heart. Division of a usually pinnately divided leaf. The externally visible cartilaginous structure of the external ear. A dense cluster of flowers or foliage. Fruiting spike of a cereal plant, especially corn. An arrangement of leafy branches forming the top or head of a tree. A very high narrow heel on women's shoes. Add alcohol to beverages. The punch is spiked. Any holding device consisting of a rigid, sharp-pointed object. The spike pierced the receipts and held them in order. Pierce with a sharp stake or point. Bring forth a spike or spikes. Fruiting spike of a cereal plant, especially corn. A large stout nail. They used spikes to fasten the rails to a railroad tie. A long, thin, sharp-pointed implement, wood or metal. One of the spikes impaled him. A sharp-pointed projection along the top of a fence or wall, or a dinosaur. A sharp rise followed by a sharp decline. The seismograph showed a sharp spike in response to the temblor. A transient variation in voltage or current. Botany, an indeterminate inflorescence bearing sessile flowers on an unbranched axis. Each of the sharp points on the soles of athletic shoes to prevent slipping, or the shoes themselves. The second baseman sharpened his spikes before every game. Manifest a sharp increase. The voltage spiked. Secure with spikes. Sports equipment consisting of a sharp point on the sole of a shoe worn by athletes. Spikes provide greater traction. Stand in the way of. Body structure given shape by cartilage. An amount of a product. Bear fruit. The trees fruited early this year. Cause to bear fruit. The consequence of some effort or action. He lived long enough to see the fruit of his policies. The ripened reproductive body of a seed plant. The process whereby a person concentrates on some features of the environment to the relative exclusion of others. The act of being present, at a meeting or event, etc. The process whereby a person concentrates on some features of the environment to the relative exclusion of others. The work of providing treatment for or attending to someone or something. The old car needs constant attention. A courteous act indicating affection. She tried to win his heart with her many attentions. A general interest that leads people to want to know more. She was the center of attention. A motionless erect stance with arms at the sides and feet together, assumed by military personnel during drill or review. The troops stood at attention. The faculty or power of mental concentration. Keeping track of all the details requires your complete attention. The ability to hear, the auditory faculty. Perform in order to get a role. She auditioned for a role on Broadway. The ability to hear, the auditory faculty. A test of the suitability of a performer. The act of hearing attentively. They make good music, you should give them a hearing. An opportunity to state your case and be heard. They condemned him without a hearing. The ability to hear, the auditory faculty. His hearing was impaired. The range within which a voice can be heard. Able to perceive sound. A session of a committee or grand jury, in which witnesses are called and testimony is taken. The investigative committee will hold hearings in Chicago. Law. A proceeding, usually by a court, where evidence is taken for the purpose of determining an issue of fact and reaching a decision based on that evidence. The ability to hear, the auditory faculty. The ability to hear, the auditory faculty. An organ having nerve endings, in the skin or viscera or eye or ear or nose or mouth, that respond to stimulation. An organ having nerve endings, in the skin or viscera or eye or ear or nose or mouth, that respond to stimulation. An organ having nerve endings, in the skin or viscera or eye or ear or nose or mouth, that respond to stimulation. A cellular structure that is postulated to exist in order to mediate between a chemical agent that acts on nervous tissue and the physiological response. An auricle deformed by injury, common among boxers. An ear of corn. The part of the ear visible externally. The part of the ear visible externally. A hard thickening of the skin, especially on the top or sides of the toes, caused by the pressure of ill-fitting shoes. Tall annual cereal grass bearing kernels on large ears. Widely cultivated in America in many varieties. The principal cereal in Mexico and Central and South America since pre-Columbian times. Ears of corn that can be prepared and served for human food. Whiskey distilled from a mash of not less than 80% corn. Feed cattle with corn. Great Britain. Any of various cereal plants, especially the dominant crop of the region, wheat in Great Britain or oats in Scotland and Ireland. Preserve with salt. Corned beef. Something sentimental or trite. That movie was pure corn. The dried grains or kernels or corn used as animal feed or ground for meal. Tall annual cereal grass bearing kernels on large ears. Widely cultivated in America in many varieties. The principal cereal in Mexico and Central and South America since pre-Columbian times. Tall annual cereal grass bearing kernels on large ears. Widely cultivated in America in many varieties. The principal cereal in Mexico and Central and South America since pre-Columbian times. A strong yellow color. Tall annual cereal grass bearing kernels on large ears. Widely cultivated in America in many varieties. The principal cereal in Mexico and Central and South America since pre-Columbian times. The sensory system for hearing. Organs mediating the labyrinthine sense, concerned with equilibrium. Computer science. A tiny electromagnetic coil and metal pole used to write and read magnetic patterns on a disk. Be in charge of. Who is heading this project? A person who is in charge. The head of the whole operation. that which is responsible for one's thoughts, feelings, and conscious brain functions, the seat of the faculty of reason. I couldn't get his words out of my head. Be the first or leading member of a group and excel. This student heads the class. The educator who has executive authority for a school. The upper part of the human body or the front part of the body in animals contains the face and brains. He stuck his head out the window. Travel in front of, go in advance of others. The procession was headed by John. The part in the front or nearest the viewer. He was at the head of the column. A line of text serving to indicate what the passage below it is about. The heading seemed to have little to do with the text. A V-shaped mark at one end of an arrow pointer. A difficult juncture. Matters came to a head yesterday. Forward movement. The ship made little headway against the gale. Oral stimulation of the genitals. They say he gives good head. A dense cluster of flowers or foliage. A head of cauliflower. The subject matter at issue. Under the head of minor Roman poets. Direct the course, determine the direction of traveling. The source of water from which a stream arises. They tracked him back toward the head of the stream. A natural elevation, especially a rocky one that juts out into the sea. Grammar, the word in a grammatical constituent that plays the same grammatical role as the whole constituent. A membrane that is stretched taut over a drum. An individual person. Tickets are $5 per head. A projection out from one end. The head of the nail. A rounded compact mass. The head of a comet. A single domestic animal. 200 head of cattle. A user of, usually soft, drugs. The office was full of secret heads. Be in the front of or on top of. The list was headed by the name of the president. Form a head or come or grow to a head. The wheat headed early this year. Nautical, a toilet on board a boat or ship. Remove the head of. Head the fish. Take its rise. These rivers head from a mountain range in the Himalayas. That part of a skeletal muscle that is away from the bone that it moves. The foam or froth that accumulates at the top when you pour an effervescent liquid into a container. The beer had a large head of foam. The front of a military formation or procession. The head of the column advanced boldly. The length or height based on the size of a human or animal head. He is 2 heads taller than his little sister. The pressure exerted by a fluid. A head of steam. The rounded end of a bone that fits into a rounded cavity in another bone to form a joint. The head of the humerus. The striking part of a tool. The head of the hammer. The tip of an abscess, where the pus accumulates. The top of something. The head of the stairs. To go or travel towards. Where is she heading? Usually plural, the obverse side of a coin that usually bears the representation of a person's head. Call heads or tails. The upper part of the human body or the front part of the body in animals contains the face and brains. A head-like protuberance on an organ or structure. The caput humeri is the head of the humerus which fits into a cavity in the scapula. Organs mediating the labyrinthine sense, concerned with equilibrium. A small cartilaginous flap in front of the external opening of the ear.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.